Hi, welcome to the video. So today I'm going to demonstrate 5 arpeggios that were shown in the Joe Satriani column in the magazine back in 1988 in September. I'm also going to show 5 other arpeggios that are related to them that I added to it by basically taking 2 of the shapes he did and harmonizing through the key, and also doing a variation on one of the other ones. Okay, so there'll be a total of 10 fingerings you can try out. These are what I would call intervallic arpeggios. They're basically using a different interval than the standard one. In this case, it's primarily fifths instead of your standard arpeggios, which are based on stacked thirds. Now, if you don't know what that means, that's okay. But stacking the fifths, it gives a little bit different sound and a little bit different placement of notes, a little bit more stretched out. I'm going to do this in a different order than the way he wrote it in the magazine. I'm basically in reverse order, and the reason being, some of these are kind of a stretch, so don't overdo it. Take it slow, and if you just really don't like the stretching part, pull off some of the single octaves that don't require stretching and use those in your playing. Or just take the concept and create some of your own fingerings from that. But the reason I'm doing it in reverse is the first arpeggio he shows is the one that requires the most stretching, and the last one he shows requires the least. So in case you're playing along with the video, I want to have you warm up properly before you get to the ones that require the most stretching. So the first one is basically an A7 flat 9. He basically is playing all 5 of his ones starting on A, so there you can see the similarity and differences between them without necessarily keeping them all in one key. So it's going to root 5th, flat 9, and then it's jumping up to a major 3rd. Then this would be a flat 7, and the last note would be the major 3rd again. So you have basically the 1, 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9. So, and this one, again, you can take individual octaves of this and then just work in with your scales. So you don't need to play the whole arpeggio to get some benefit from it. So then here's a variation that I added. Basically, this would be considered an altered arpeggio because I'm sharpening or flatting the 5th or the 9th. So here's one that has a flat 5 and a flat 9. So all I'm doing is changing one note. I'm taking this 5th and lowering it down to here. So then you get a little bit more tension still. And these altered ones are quite often used to create tension before we resolve back to the root in the key. So if you're in the key of C major, for example, you'd play this off a G, and then you'd resolve it back to the C. This would be considered in chord progressions a 5-1 progression, if you're doing that. So anyways, so again, that would be, or the variation. So now I'll move on to the next one he did. Still kind of a little bit discordant, but not as much as that one. That's just an A11, so it's a dominant 11. Part of why you hear the discordance is it's going 1, 5, 9 again on here, but then this puts the 11, and then the flat 7, and then the major 3rd. But because of the way it's ordered, you have a flat 5 sounding at the end of that, so that creates kind of some tension there. Okay, so that's an A11. And I'll harmonize some of these next ones through the whole key, so you'll be able to see how they'd work in one key. So the next one is a sus2 sus4, or a sus4 sus2. Basically, so I have the 1, 5. I'm going to consider this now a 2, and this 11 4, because when he goes into the second octave, he just does a rooted 5th again, so there's no 3rd or 7th. So 1, 5, 2, 4, 1, 5. Now this is kind of a stretched out position. This way I was talking about how it gets to be more of a stretch. The reason, because you have this 5th interval like this, but crossing from the 3rd string to a 2nd string, the G to a B, it's pushed forward one more, making it more of a stretch. Most of the time when I create fingerings of my own, I try and avoid that shift. if I'm putting the fifths and I'm stacking them up, I will usually have them fall on the 4 and 3 if possible, and the 2 and 1, and not have the fifth interval going across from the 3 to the 2 string. But if you don't mind the stretching, it's a perfectly valid shape. If you do mind it, it can always come up with a different fingering on it. So the next one, same shape on the top and the same shape on the bottom. He just moves it back 1 fret. So by moving it back 1 fret, now I have the 1, 5, 9, so that this becomes a major third, major 7, and then, up here, a sharp 11 on it. So this is what would fit over like a Lydian position, so like in the key of C over F. So that sharp 11, again, potentially can create a little bit of tension. Then the last one that he showed, which was actually the one he showed first, would be a minor 11, 1, 5, 9, minor third, flat 7, 11. Okay, so now I'm going to take, if you notice, those last two shapes actually would both fit within a key. That the minor 11 could fit if I'm in the key of C over the A minor or the D minor position, so the Aeolian or Dorian position, or 6 and 2 chord. The one with the sharp 11 would fit over the 4th chord or the Lydian position. So now I'm going to take those same order of notes, the 1, 5, 9, 3, 7, and 11, and move it through the whole key. So I'm going to start with the G11. So we'd already done the 11th, down the 11, but with this fingering, it's going to give a little bit different fingering. And personally, I kind of actually like that one better, but it's all personal taste. It's the same notes, they're just in a different order. So the one we'd done earlier would have been, but now it's here just by switching the orders of some of the notes, but the same notes. Okay, then I'm going to move up, and on the tab, I wrote fingerings for all these, but the original column did not have any fingerings, so these are all my fingerings, not ones that Joe had shown. I also wrote what the intervals were above the different arpeggios, which was also something I added. He didn't include that, next to them in the original one. But I think it's beneficial to still see that and compare them. So now, as we move up to A, it's just the same A minor 11 that we had done earlier. Now we move up to B low-key position. That has the flat 5 and flat 9, so it's actually the same shape I showed in that variation here, but then going into that shape we'd done with A minor 11. So that's would be a 1, and then you've got a flat 5, flat 9, and then this is just your minor third, your minor 7th, and your 11th. So it's a B minor 11 with a flat 5 and a flat 9. Now I'm going to do a C major 11. So I have the same thing. Now, but to get the major 7 now, this moves forward, and then the 11 is there. So, and you've got the major third here. So a little bit different shape. Okay, now we're going to move up to D, and the D is the same one we did on the A, so same fingering on it. I'm going to move up to the E minor, which will have a flat 9, so E minor 11 flat 9. So it has the same shape we did back here in the A7 flat 9, but then we have that same top octave. The last one will be just the F major 9 sharp 11, which is the same one we did back here on the A position. So if you look at this, I wrote it in the same order he originally wrote it, the first 5 being the ones from the Joe Satriani column, then the variation on that altered chord, and then written through the key. So I think the value of these is just thinking of arpeggios in a different way. You can easily create your own fingerings, so experiment with adding different intervals in either altered ones or different extensions of 9, 11, 13, and see what you can create for fingerings. If you're interested in me doing a video on some of the fingerings I've created, they're in the same similar vein. I can do a video on that too. Just leave a comment below or like my comments, mention that. Um, I also did a video using fifth interval, fifth arpeggios that Jason Becker did, and so I'll link that up in the corner too, and you can check out that if you want some more kind of stretched out ones. When I do them, I don't really like big flexibility arpeggios, so I tend to finger them in ways that don't require as much stretching as what a lot of these are. But that's just personal preference. Obviously these are valid enough arpeggios, otherwise Joe wouldn't have done a column on them. So please like, share, comment, any of that stuff, subscribe. I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching.